You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Josh Guest. He joins us each and every week. And Josh, I don't know if you are aware of this, but we are getting ready to start our Insiders program at Locked On Ole Miss. And what that is basically you sign up. It's $5 per month if you choose to go there, but it's a text thing. Whenever a relevant piece of news happens, you just get texted. You don't have to look it up. You don't have to search it out. It gets delivered straight to you. It's a 14-day free trial. We're going to have our regulars potentially on there. I'm working that out with the big boss people of me and being able to put other people on there. And we're just going to have a fun time to where we can just communicate with basically a big group text, and you can one-on-one communicate with Locked On Ole Miss. I think that's pretty cool, Josh. What do you think?
It is pretty cool, and I've heard you mention it a little bit, and it sounds pretty cool. And like you said, it's I think you were talking about it's fun, and when something's easy, it's more fun. And yeah, and so this is pretty easy because you're going to get the nuggets you want without having to really do a lot of digging. And because I'll be honest with you, I'm not as connected as others, so if I try to find something out, I gotta dig and work for it pretty hard. So I've been looking for some information on somebody this week, a couple different players, and I just haven't been able to find what I'm looking for. Now, it's not readily available information, but I was just trying to figure it out. So anyway.
Well, for instance, the big question this week that everybody was having, the big news was, where will Caleb Cunningham go? Is he going to Ole Miss for the cookout? Is he going to Auburn's Big Cat weekend? That is something going on with him. And on our group text and on this thing, our Insiders program, he put out that he was not going to Big Cat weekend. So that got put out and got disseminated to everybody. And as soon as that tweet hit, you didn't have to look it up. It just got delivered straight to you.
Oh yeah, nice stuff. And I speaking of Big Cat weekend, how can they not call it something like War Eagle weekend? I mean, but anyway, that's their marketing career.
Yeah, they've got 37 nicknames, so who knows?
That's right.
So fall camp is right around the corner. The way this goes, we're recording this on a Wednesday. This is going to air on a Thursday. But a week from today, roughly, is about the point where Ole Miss is going to start fall camp. They'll start their acclimation period and all of that. It's right around the corner. I can feel myself kind of flipping the switch from off-season to football season. Is that feeling in Oxford the way it is?
I think so. And Steven, it's just going to be nice to get something else to kind of keep the buzz going. Not that there needs to be anything else to keep the buzz going right now in Oxford, because everybody's sort of bonkers over this football season, and rightfully so. And to be honest with you, I haven't I know we talked about it last week about the chemistry and that kind of thing, but I haven't talked to too many people that have concerns. I know they're out there. I just haven't run across them. And I think a lot of that is what we've talked about with Jaxson Dart kind of leading the charge and sort of recruiting and being a part of whatever and the kind of leader he is. And, it's so cool that, you brought this up about Lane Kiffin's comment about if there was a rating on a game for leadership, he'd be a 99, on the game that came out. And I'm excited too. Look, this is what I just mentioned. I was looking for, so I was trying to figure out who drove the car I saw. Because this guy, in my opinion, was obviously a football player. And in my mind, I thought he looks like a linebacker. So the trailhead where the Whirlpool trails are, there's a hill. And this guy had driven his car over to the base of that hill, and he had cones going up the hill, and he was sprinting up the hill on his own. This is on his own accord, whoever he was. And I thought, I want to know who that is because I want to be able to watch him when the season starts, because they're doing extra work right now to get faster, to get stronger, to get better outside of what the normal things are. So it was really cool to see that. And look, if I hadn't timed it just right and been there for whatever, he probably did that for 30 minutes or an hour. I wouldn't think he would have done it much more than 30 minutes. He was busting it straight up a hill, Stephen. And I don't mean like an incline. I mean like straight up a hill. It was an uphill. Like I would have trouble taking a mountain bike and riding up this hill. It was so steep.
Okay.
So impressive.
Okay. So the question is, how roughly give me, how big was he?
I mean, I'm going to say he was 230, 240. He was broad shouldered. He was probably 6'2". I don't know. He was far. He was across away a little bit from me, so I didn't get the best look. But in my mind, I thought, and I couldn't even see his face that well because he was far enough away, he was 80, 100 yards away. But I thought my immediate mind was the way that they talk about Poopall covering the field. Could it be him? Could it be TJ? I want to say Dudley, but I know it's
Daughtery.
Yeah. And so could it be somebody else? I don't know. Could it be Rashad Amos? Could it be running back? I don't know. It may not even be a football player at Ole Miss, but I thought immediately he looked like a linebacker just from how broad his shoulders were and how, he was built. And he was, I'm telling you, I was so impressed. He was busting it up that hill. And I actually went home and told my son, I said, if you want to get faster, here's what you do, man. I just saw a football player doing this. Go run up that hill.
Yeah, it's really funny that, like I said, I'm not worried. Everybody's talking about culture and team building and all that stuff. And as long as these guys are being led by Jaxson Dart and JJ Pegues and Jared Ivey and those guys, I'm not worried about leadership at all.
No.
I think this team is going to be absolutely fine. It should be interesting. I like the fact, and that's good timing because on Wednesday morning, I did a show specifically about linebackers and talking about that. And, there's a nice variability of the Ole Miss linebackers that range from Princely and Monmielen, who can play that jack hybrid position, all the way down to Suntaran Perkins. And I don't mean down as far as talent. I mean down as far as weight.
Yeah.
You like 250 all the way down to like 205. So there's some variability. And, it could be anybody. It could have been Chris Hardy. And just because it was 100 yards away, that was like a 260-pound man running up the hill.
Yeah, he was a big dude. I know that. And like I said, I was just impressed that whoever it was out there doing work on their own and doing that kind of work, because that wasn't like a show me thing. That was, I'm trying to better myself. And it was obvious because that was I'm telling you, straight up a hill.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And if you look around Oxford, if you look around North Mississippi, you look around the Ole Miss fan base, if we're just going to be real about it, this fan base is jazzed, and is jazzed at a level that we have never seen at Ole Miss. The last time they were probably this jazzed was this time in 1970. If we're going to be honest, the season that Archie Manning was the favorite to win the Heisman and Ole Miss was the favorite to win the national championship. That was the year that Archie broke his arm, unfortunately. But if you look at this fan base, the season tickets, they're sold out. Ole Miss is sold out of season tickets. They might be sold out of student tickets at this point. If you're looking at that, because I think they're including them as far as a registration package, right? Like a fee, something like that.
I can't keep up. I
think they're doing something, but this thing is so jazzed to the point where, in my opinion, they almost have to sell the tickets all right now, because if they don't, the Friday night before the game, whenever everybody's setting up for the Grove, you're going to have a camping area basically set up outside the ticketing office, and you're going to have a Krzyzewskiville.
Yeah. Look, Steven, I will say this too. There are people that I have known for a long time as I wouldn't call them a casual fan, like they're not a fan, but maybe they're not as big a football fan, but they've mentioned to me, I can't wait for football season. Mm-hmm. And for them to be that way, that just hypes up that jazz you're talking about, how amped up everybody is waiting for this. And I was even, telling a younger person, much younger than myself, I'm at least twice their age, maybe 3 or 4 times their age. And I was like, look, this is the season that I've waited for my whole life. What we are about to experience, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And so, just like the run in Omaha, again, I know I keep going back to that, but that was something I just kept waiting on and kept waiting on and kept waiting on, and it finally happened. And so I'm hoping that this at least is akin to it, although that was sort of a run at the end. This is more of a, man, we expect this from the beginning. And so that's kind of cool just to be going into it, and everybody's so amped up. The whole town's amped up. You go in the grocery store and talk to somebody and you're bagging groceries and they're talking about it, or you go to a restaurant and you hear people talking about it, or you go somewhere else and the people next to you are talking. It's just everybody's talking about it.
Yeah. And it's almost a shame, because there are people that are out there that are they're not going to be able to enjoy this at all. And if for some reason Ole Miss falls just short, let's say Ole Miss makes the playoff and loses in the first round, to them, they didn't enjoy any of the ride. to get to that point. And to me, that's honestly kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, enjoy the good times, because if we make the playoffs, that's going to be good times up to that point for sure. Mm-hmm. So enjoy it and soak them up.
Yeah, and with the football team that Ole Miss has this year, Ole Miss has like 22, 23 players that have draftable grades by the Senior Bowl and by the East-West Shrine game.
That's just almost unbelievable. I mean, I heard the number when you said it. I was like, holy cow. That's basically your starting lineup that's gradable. And it may not be all of them, but I mean, it's that many people, which is, again, just stupid.
Yeah, and it's like I said, this is one of those things. It's the weirdest thing that I can remember, especially being an Ole Miss fan that grew up in the 80s and 90s and seeing those teams. But you have an Ole Miss team that honestly just went to SEC media days and got treated like the Georgias and the Alabamas and all that because they deserve to.
And quite frankly, they are this year. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's always been that whole thing where, and I think Saban even alluded to this or said it, is that there's never been a problem with skill players at Ole Miss for a long time, at least anyway. For the most in recent years, we've had the dudes on the skill positions. It's the trenches where we've had the trouble of wearing down. We just don't have as many of those guys. And maybe sometimes not knocking the guys, but they may not be as good as the lines at Georgia. But the two deep at the bigger schools has been so much better on the line. And now this year, we're too deep in a lot of places, Steven. I know you've talked about 22 on offense, 22 on defense. And, I mean, if we're not there, we're really, really, really close to there.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. Who is Josh's breakout players? What storylines is he looking at fall camp? We talk about that next. But first, Game Time is the place to get your Ole Miss tickets. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets. Anywhere in the Vaught Hemingway Stadium, as we all know, there's not a bad seat in that place, but you can check the view from every seat in the arena with Game Time. That's pretty cool. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protective, check protection, job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And with this being the most anticipated football season in Ole Miss history, I might be able to help you out, actually, with some tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's all one word. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Are you watching Fox News or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On is adding 2 additional streaming channels, one on the NFL, one on college sports, which means yours truly is going to prominently feature this year as well. So, Josh, fall camp getting ready to start. Who do you think will be the breakout players this season for Ole Miss?
Well, Steven, this is probably a sentimental thing here, but with Brandon Turnage being a local guy, going to the Commodores, my kid's school, and going off to some other places in the SEC and then coming back home, I think it'll be great if he's able to break into the lineup and play significant and play well. So I really am rooting for him to do that. Not rooting against anybody else. I'm just rooting for him. And I think that'll be kind of cool to see, hopefully, again, a local guy doing something like that. And then, I don't know that you can consider it a breakout, but how is Suntaran Perkins used and what does his role look like and how effective and dominant can he be amongst all these other guys? And so, we always like to talk about the big names and everything else, and I may not know who it might be, just like I talked about the secondary last week, and I don't know who it could be. Maybe I want it to be Turnage. I don't know. But it's going to affect, and there may be somebody that may not be rated as talented as a Walter Nolan or a Prince Emmanuel or anybody like that, but because they're soaking up double teams, somebody else steps up and has 8 sacks on the season that nobody was expecting because they weren't talked about in the same way. But I think it's going to be cool to watch. So I'm really anxious to see the defensive unit just play somebody. Like, I mentioned 84-0, and I'm gonna catch some grief about it, but against Furman or whatever. But I want to see them play. I want to see how they gel. I want to see how they can shut down people, because we know what Golding did, last year with what he had, and now it's widely believed he has more talent than he had last year. So you would expect there to be a jump in the defense. And their ability to stop folks. So that's going to be fun to watch. And then on the offensive side, I really want to see Juice Wells on the field. I really want to see what that's like. And if Deion Smith ends up suiting up as well, wow. I mean, just take a handful of receivers. You go 5, 6, 7 down, and just take any 3 you want to, put them on the field, and I want to see it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's going to be fun to watch. And can Dart continue his ascension? There's nothing to lead us to believe that he can't.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of Juice Wells, because you've heard me on my show talk about the whole purpose of this offense is to remove double teams from Tre Harris, because you can't cover him. So if Tre Harris has 90 catches and 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns this season, that means Juice Wells did one hell of a job.
Yeah. And he may not have the stats to back it up. Like, his numbers may not look good. But if that happens, then exactly what you've been talking about did happen, that Tre got one-on-one. And, right, we talk about his grade all the time. He's number 1 and gets one-on-one coverage. So good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole goal is, if you have the best in the country at something, you try to figure out ways to make that happen. And the way that you do that is to remove double teams, and you bring in Juice Wells, you bring in Deion Smith, you make sure the running back room is loaded, the tight end room's loaded, to where the defense has no choice but to try and fight Jaxson Dart with deception, because you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And from there, hopefully he sees the one-on-one and takes advantage of it.
And who would you rather have trying to scheme all this up than our boy Lane?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
with helmet technology, to where you can tell him.
Yeah, complete cheat code. Left, right, up, down, A, B, select, start, or whatever, the old Nintendo.
Yeah. It's going to be like playing Nintendo against somebody in double dribble or something like that had a glitch.
Yeah.
And they always just use that glitch. In double dribble, by the way, if you shot the ball up from the top of the screen while he's fading out of bounds and shot it, it went in every single time. So,
so my big cheat code I remember was the Super Contra, Super C or whatever, with the the shoot 'em up game, the war game, and you could do the code and you just had unlimited lives. You could just barrel through the whole thing. So
just going. Okay.
Right. Didn't matter. You didn't have to be careful. You didn't do anything. Just go.
Yeah. One thing that I thought it would be funny is, I don't know why Super Mario didn't do this back in that area, is just have a warp zone, but it was like a random warp zone. Sometimes, you could go all the way back to the beginning of the game. You could go forward. You had no idea.
That would have added some suspense, because the way it was set up, right? I mean, you knew where you were going each time, and you knew how to get there. And if you missed it, you missed it. There were ways to miss it. But that would have been kind of cool, Steven, if you could have done that, where it was just kind of a random thing, and who knows? Yeah,
it could be pretty good. Anyway, once again, I want to let everybody know about the Locked On Ole Miss Insiders program that we are starting. It's a texting thing where we will send you relevant information on Ole Miss sports. We'll send you links to all the podcasts and all of that. You can communicate one-on-one with me, and eventually you will get your own mailbag shows. And once the Locked On Ole Miss Insiders gets to a group, we'll just have private videos that are done that are basically mailbag shows for just the insiders. So that's once we get up over 50, 100 members, something like that. So it should be pretty good. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Josh Guest, thank you so much. What do you got going on this weekend, buddy?
Steven, this is the last weekend before I go back to work. I start back August 1st. School doesn't start till mid-August, but I go back. But the big thing I'm doing this weekend I'm sorry, I'm off a weekend. The big thing I'm doing 2 weekends from now is getting my daughter from camp. You can see I'm all amped up about it. So that won't be this weekend. That'll be next weekend. But that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. This weekend will just be kind of relaxing, getting ready for going back to work next week. And then I will get her from all that Texas stuff she's done all summer in a couple of weeks, but already amped up to do that and get her back at the house and see her.
Saturday, I will be going to see Deadpool.
Oh, I heard you say that. Yeah.
So I've already got the tickets.
Heard the whole thing with you and Zach Berry. So we may be going to see Twisters this weekend too, by the way.
Yes. That's a fantastic movie. Listen, there's no romance. There's no social commentary. There's no politics. It's the perfect fun movie. You just get to enjoy tornadoes blowing stuff up.
That's where you caught my attention. My wife wants to see it, but when you said those things, I was like, oh, he has my attention now. Because every movie has their agenda, and I just want to watch a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just cut your brain off and go. And apparently, Zach, God bless him, he was expecting Citizen Kane when he walked into Twisters. But it was enjoyable. I enjoyed that movie very, very much.
Good deal.
All right, thanks, Josh. You have a good one, bud.
All right, you too. Hotty toddy, go Rebs.